I'll be comparing the two Phaetons in this game today, the Phaeton regular and the Phaeton Helios, the variant of the regular Phaeton. So starting off with the regular Phaeton, this is an 8-rec VTOL aircraft that is a pretty significant armor, but only when you have Wheelman. It can survive up to 3 spanker shots with the rocket launcher, but then the 4th will take it down. And it can survive a full laser shot as well, which is pretty good for an air vehicle, because usually the air vehicles are not really the biggest armored in this game, but when you have Wheelman, it makes these things really stand out in their armor. This vehicle has a charge-up chain gun as its primary and 4 volley rockets as its secondary, and what makes this vehicle pretty powerful as an 8-rec vehicle is its ability to sit in one area above a base or above an objective where enemies are, and you can clean out all the enemies before they even realize you start shooting at them. And by that I mean, when this thing is pretty quiet, so you can't really tell when it's about to be above you. You can only really tell after you hear the initial shot of it. But once you fire the rockets and then start using your chain gun, you will be able to start hitting all the targets very, very easily, and by the time they realize that you're shooting at them, you'll be taking out the last enemy. However, the downside to it is that it's a charge-up chain gun, so unless if you're pre-charging it by shooting it off at an object or just off in the distance before you aim at an enemy, they will have a chance to get behind cover or get a chance to react to your shot, because of the fact that it is a very, very slow startup time, so they have a lot of time to react for that initial startup shot. That's why the way to use the chain gun is mostly if you're going to go into a giant crowd of people, you want to charge it up by looking off into the distance or just shooting an object, because then you can start getting the chain gun rolling and then you can start killing people very, very quickly. However, despite all that, this vehicle is 8 recs. It's a very heavy wrecked vehicle, so you're going to get later into the game, and that's a problem, because later in the game there'll be the harder AIs to kill. A lot of AIs will be on the battlefield, and on top of that, everyone will be around the same rec level as you, so they will have Spartan lasers, ad victoriums, rocket launchers, railguns, all those kinds of power weapons to take this vehicle out. And unfortunately, dodging all of these weapons is extremely hard for the Phaeton. You're going to have to use cover and objects as your obstruction, because the boost that the Phaeton has is very limited. It boosts you a short amount of distance, and it's only for that emergency dodge of a Spartan laser or railgun, but if you're being locked down by a rocket, unfortunately, you're going to take the full damage. And that's where the weakness of these Phaetons come in, is that dodging enemy power weapons is very, very hard. Now, moving on to the Phaeton Helios, this vehicle is a true powerhouse, with its primary being no longer a charge-up chain gun, but a extremely powerful laser beam that has deadly accuracy at both non-aim assist and aim assist. This chain gun is the ultimate multi-kill attack in the game, and its secondary is a massive volley of 12 rockets that is mostly meant for vehicles. And what I mean by that is it can kill enemy players, but the AoE splash damage that it does and the initial damage in itself is very, very low for Spartans, so it's not really recommended to use it against Spartans. Unlike the Phaeton, where you initiate with your 4 volley rockets and then use your chain gun to finish off the enemies, the Phaeton Helios is best opening with the laser beam for the Spartans and opening with the 12 volley rockets for the vehicles. The regular Phaeton has the regular Phaeton's volley rockets don't really have the best lock-on capability. It can lock onto any vehicle, however the curve time for it and the travel time is pretty slow, but the Phaeton Helios's rockets have a full-on lock-on sequence and has much better curve time and damage output. Both of these vehicles have around the same movement speed and same boost recharge rate. However, the Phaeton Helios does seem to have a little bit less armor than the Phaeton. However, despite that, it still does take up to 4 rockets to take it out, so it's not really too much of a difference. So there's not really much to compare there. They're both 8 Rex. They both have the same weaknesses in terms of dodging and defending against enemies. However, the Phaeton Helios, with its insane power attacks with its primary and secondary, can take out regular Banshees and maybe even Banshee Ultras and Temple Banshees a lot better than the regular Phaeton. And now you might be thinking that the Phaeton would be better for Spartans and the Phaeton Helios will be better for vehicles. And actually, even though I have said that the volley rockets on the regular Phaeton is better than the Phaeton Helios for Spartans, that does not mean that it is better in general for Spartans, because the Phaeton Helios' laser beam attack is so insanely powerful, it outrights the primary and secondary of the Phaeton alone. And because of this, the Phaeton Helios is my preferred vehicle, mostly because the damage output of this thing is just so insane. On top of that, it has very accurate attacks. The Phaeton regular has the charge-up chain gun, and I'm not too much of a fan of having to stay in a single spot for a long amount of time while shooting enemies, and that's what the regular Phaeton is all about. You have to charge up the chain gun, and you have to be very, very focused on the enemies while you're taking them down. The volley rockets on the regular Phaeton though is very, very good, and I like using them over the 12 volley rocket for the Phaeton Helios. However, Phaeton Helios can take down Spartan vehicles, enemy AI, a lot better than the Phaeton in the long run. So because of that, the Phaeton Helios is better than the regular Phaeton.